episode of Locked On Avalanche, and not much going on in the world of the Avalanche, at least on Wednesday. That's okay. I mean, they've been doing a lot between all the moves that they've been making. We all think that they're not done, and there's still a few days left in the before the trade deadline. But there was a lot of movement in other teams, and how does that impact the Avs and the teams involved? We'll talk about them anyway. Kyle and I will get to that right now. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, and thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Follow the show on social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions to lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow the show on our YouTube channel where we are live. Hit subscribe, get notified when those shows are live. It's just that simple. Yeah. All right. On today's episode, there's a report out there about Tyson Jost. Kyle and I are not kind of questioning it. It's not even a report. I didn't see a report. It was just a Avalanche social media page that was putting it out there. Who is kind of reputable. I don't want to throw shade on them or anything like that. Like they kind of are usually correct on some things, but they're the only ones that I've seen that are talking about this in Tyson Jost. So we'll talk about that, and a lot of movement going on around the NHL. Not for once, not involving the Avalanche directly, but is it kind of indirectly affecting the Avalanche and maybe them forcing to make some moves, or when they play these teams, if they play these teams down the road and in the playoffs. So let's get started on all of that stuff. And we'll start with the Tyson Jost thing. Did you watch any of the Minnesota game? Could you tune in just to see that it was real, that he was wearing Minnesota colors?
I don't think there's a current Av that would go to Minnesota that I would turn on a Minnesota Wild game for.
Really? You wouldn't do it?
Even if Nas went over there, it would almost make me hate them. I cannot do Minnesota. Yes, I could not do. I honestly could not. There's nothing that would make me want to turn on the Minnesota Wild game.
I mean,
I'm sure you guys are great people if you happen to just hate watch this show, but like I cannot do the Minnesota Wild at all.
Well, I mean, the good thing about having ESPN Plus is you can, tune in on the opponent's broadcast. You don't have to listen to. Yeah. But in this case, that opponent's broadcast is Boston, and it's kind of a lose-lose situation.
It's a very Homer broadcast right there.
Oh my God. That's brutal to listen to. Yeah. But I did. I tuned in for I didn't watch a lot. I watched like the first period, and that was pretty much it. Just to see that it was real. But you and I both saw, who was it? Avs Insider?
I believe it was.
I think it was Avs Insider on Instagram put up something where, what's happening, Matt? That Tyson Jost requested a trade. I think the way he phrased it was years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he was unhappy with being crossed over, passed by. When players were being propped up in the lines, and he was kind of getting overlooked, and he did request a trade, and it kind of took until now for that to happen. And again, like, I follow him on Instagram, and I think he puts up good stuff, and he doesn't just put up stuff to get clicks. Most of the time he's on the money with a lot of stuff, and I'm not saying he's wrong here. He's the only one that I've seen put it up. I just don't know if I buy it. I don't know if I buy that Tyson Jost was requesting a trade, because for him, like, this is not Matt Duchene.
No.
That should be relatively easy to facilitate a trade for Tyson Jost, even if it's 2 years ago.
Yeah. And didn't he just sign a deal last year? Or it was the bubble year? He just signed a deal. So if you're asking for, and I think it was when before the Seattle Kraken draft, because we were anticipating him not re-signing and going somewhere else. And we were talking about protecting all this other stuff. And I remember when that broke, when you messaged me, you're like, well, there's Jost. We got him a little bit longer. I was like, really? That's head scratching. So if you're asking for a trade, and then I think he cited Jost saying he didn't like being shuffled down in the bottom lines. Was he not on that top line?
Oh, he was, yeah. For last year, he improved. All of us saw like he improved last year when we thought maybe that's him turning the corner, and the Avs gave him I think it was a 1-year deal. I think that's all they gave him was a 1-year deal. But he's restricted, so it's not like you can just not. If another team wanted to sign him, they'd have to give up something. It would be small. I don't have the graphic in front of me of what it depends on how much you sign them for and what you have to give up. It wouldn't have been a lot if someone wanted to sign him to an offer sheet. But that didn't happen. So that's why I kind of feel like I think maybe the Avalanche could have just said, go out and try to find something. We won't match it. And if that team wants to give us like a 7th round pick or something for like, I think a team would have done that.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. So I don't know. I don't know how much validity there is to that, because I kind of feel like the way that Joe Sakic does business is he would try to facilitate a trade. And, he's not going to be as patient, more patient with Tyson Jost in trying to make a deal than he was with Matt Duchene. And he was very patient, and look, the King's ransom that they got for Matt Duchene. I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me.
And especially if that's going to be the narrative surrounding Jost's exit from Colorado, you would think the social post would also reflect that. Like Strom, not even like as soon as it was announced, he's announcing like on his socials that I'm so excited to be a part of Colorado. Thanks for everything, Minnesota. It's been radio silence out of Jost. Like, this is your opportunity to burn a bridge here. Like, say, hey, I can't wait to play for Minnesota, someone who's going to recognize my talent, and I can't wait to put up a hat trick and lead the team right next to Krill the Thrill, but radio silence.
Well, he said all the right things. He said they're a good organization, and thank you for my time. I made a lot of friends there, and he goes, I'm just looking forward to making new memories in Minnesota. Like, he said all of the right things. And that's the thing with Tyson Jost. Like, he's a good locker room guy. I can't, if he felt like he was getting passed over and other players were being propped up in the lineup over him, I know guys would do it. Go say like, my time is over here. I want to request a trade. Where he was in his career, he's still young at that. We're talking about a couple years ago now. I kind of feel like he would have just said, I got to play better. He's one of the hardest workers on the Avalanche. He would have worked harder. He wouldn't have taken the easy way out and just said, I want to trade.
Yeah. Especially I think that's the thing that's really like hits me the most when it comes to this article and everything that they were talking about. Jost, he's a hard worker. Like, he's out there with a spaghetti jaw and a goldfish bowl trying to play games because he's a hard worker. Like, he's not upper bodying this and taking the day off and just riding out to the trade deadline. He's out there trying to play. So I don't know why this was said or why this is floating out there. I don't think this would be Jost, but if it is, like, they gave you every opportunity. Oh, yeah. You didn't meet them with what they were wanting.
Yeah. And this goes even further than Tyson Jost. And say it was true, or no, forget that. Say never happened. They gave him ample opportunity to take that top spot. Or not a top spot, a top 6 spot, I should say. They gave him more than enough time to do that. And when people want to jump on, Joe Sakic and say like, oh, we need a goalie, and at the beginning of the season, like, get rid of Kemper. He's played, 2 bad games in a row. We can't have, like, this goes to show you how patient Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland are with their players.
Yeah.
And Tyson Jost was given more than enough chance to do it. And I think he would tell you he did. He in his comments, he was saying that was in so many words, he said, I think it was time for a change of scenery. Yeah.
And honestly, look at that top 6. Who's still in there right now from our 3 players that we were always watching when it came to this trade deadline? Berkey's still in that top 6. And he gave Jost every opportunity to steal that job.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
He gave him every opportunity. All you had to do was assist put just one. Put one in there.
Yeah.
And Jost just did not do it. So opportunity was there.
More than enough. And Chris said tonight's game, or last night's game now, if you're listening to this on Thursday, was on TNT, which I listened to the radio broadcast, so I didn't tune in. Visually, I couldn't see it. So still weird, though. That video that they put up of him taking the ice and in the practice gear.
He doesn't look happy. He doesn't look happy at all.
And for a guy who's colorblind with red and green to go to Minnesota, feel for you, bro, in more ways than one. So
sorry, man.
All right, some moves to get to in the NHL. How does this impact the Avs going forward? But first, betonline.net. We have our brackets filled out.
We do indeed.
I still don't know. I don't know why I'm holding out on telling you who I have. Maybe just when we get into the mode of the games are being played, I'll shout out who I have winning the entire thing. Or maybe I'll just wait to the end and say I had that team.
I could tell you right now, I have my heart and soul bracket.
You do?
I have Auburn. My Auburn Tigers winning one of those brackets.
Got to be the heart bracket.
Betcha.
Yeah, you know it. But it is that time of year again for college basketball's big tournament. It is finally upon us. For all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is your number one source for all of the sports betting needs that you need. And it remains the spot for your sports scores, podcasts, and news for this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of these sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head on over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. That is betonline.net, where the game starts. Good, bad, good. There we go. All right, here we go. So, yeah, we should have a graphic for Giroux watch just every single day. Where are we with Claude Giroux?
Have the Family Guy weatherman. It's raining.
Giroux. That's all he says.
Still nothing.
Yeah. People are kind of getting annoyed with this. I'm not. I fully believe, and I could be completely wrong on this when it's all said and done, but I just kind of feel like it's important to him to get 1,000 games with the Flyers. And is there a deal in place with the Avalanche or with another team? And, once he gets those 1,000 games, the deal is announced the next morning. I kind of feel that way. I don't know. I think it's happening. You heard another, I guess, rumor saying that he has his sight sets on Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Florida made a pretty big move on Wednesday.
Getting
Ben Chiarot from Montreal. Does that leave them enough room to get Giroux? They might have to get crafty, but I guess anything is possible. But here's where I'm saying, like, is there a deal out there for Giroux? And everybody, like you're saying, everybody knows it, but so nobody's pulling the trigger on him. So did Florida go make that move because they know maybe they're out on Giroux?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like, and we've been talking about this like before, I feel like all of these moves that we saw yesterday has this feeling like everyone has kicked the tires on your JT Miller and your Claude Giroux, and it feels like those camps say, hey, once we hit this mark, he's going here. And everybody knows it except hockey media and hockey fans. So you see the Jarnkrok move, you see Ben Chiarot move, and it's all of everyone else's second option move because they have to try and catch up and try and get ahead of this next wave when those who didn't kick the tires find out where Giroux's actually going. Mm-hmm. So they're not playing catch up. They're being a little bit ahead of the game. And I think it worries me just a little bit to see the Ben Chiarot move for Florida because now they're already getting crafty with what they can do to fit Giroux in. So it worries me just a little bit.
I mean, they do have to get crafty. I don't know. I mean, it might be have to be another team comes in and retains half, and which might have to happen for it did have to happen for the Avalanche, but I feel like you're going to see a simultaneous move with if the Avalanche do acquire Giroux, it's going to be they acquire Giroux, and you're going to see Gabe Landeskog go on LTIR simultaneously. Those things will happen at the same exact time. And it has freed up a lot of money for the Avs to go about this a different way for him. They don't have to get another team involved if they don't want to. If they can have the Flyers retain salary, you're good. You're good. But it's really interesting how the Avalanche, how we were saying, like they were the first team to really kind of pull the trigger on a move in not in February, in the trade deadline sphere, under that bubble. And normally those kind of moves have like the domino effect, but set like the market.
Yes.
And what Florida did with Montreal is, I think, beyond what the Avs did. I mean, the Avs gave up Helleson and a second round pick. Good prospect, good pick in next year's draft, because next year's draft should be pretty deep. Not this year's, next year's draft.
Yeah.
And what Florida gave up was a first rounder in next year's draft, in that same draft for next year, a fourth rounder this year, and Ty Smilanic. And if you have been listening to the Locked On Avalanche podcast for a while, Ty Smilanic was my guy.
Yeah.
I was wanting him really bad. And so much so I did, that was my CSI moment.
Yeah.
When the Avalanche posted a behind the scenes video of the draft, and it was day 2, and they were talking about the players on their board. And because they released this video after they made their selections, obviously, they beeped out the players that they said they were on their board. And being the master lip reader that I am, they mouthed Ty Smilanic, and he was taken the pick before Jean-Luc Foudy.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy with. Jean-Luc Foudy is maybe one of my favorite prospects for the Avalanche.
Yeah.
But the fact that, Smilanic is as weird as his head again, and I haven't kept up with him. I don't know how he's doing, but the fact that he's involved in this is kind of, comes full circle.
And honestly, this Chiarot move, like we talk about like the first domino to fall and how the Avalanche moves should have been the first domino to fall. It's almost taken it to a different kind of analysis. This is almost like checkers. And when you sit down to play checkers and you make your first move, it's always that corner move where nothing happens. It feels like Florida's doing the same thing on their side, and they're moving their piece to the corner
the other way.
And everybody made a move. Nothing happened in the game, but people are making moves. Honestly, what this feels like is Florida, they had their idea. We want honestly, our master plan right here is Giroux and Chiarot. Let's go ahead and get Chiarot just to make sure we get at least half of what we want. Even if we get Ben Chiarot, that's great. Nobody else gets him. It's almost like if we have him, nobody else has him. And now that they have 50% of that, they can start crafting and pulling the strings and figuring out what they can do. But instead of going the other way, and then if, let's say, the Avalanche make that push and get Giroux, they don't sit there sitting on their hands anticipating getting both and getting nothing.
And getting nothing in return, right. But who do you think... I kind of feel like Giroux was like the big fish for this year's trade deadline, but I feel like he's only on a limited number team, and he would be because he has a no trade clause and he can veto any deal that comes his way. So he's probably gone to the Flyers and say, these are the teams I want to go to, because you're not hearing a lot of teams involved in him outside of the Avalanche, outside of Florida. I mean, I've heard Calgary thrown in there a little bit with him, but you're hearing a lot for Ben Chiarot. That rhymed, by the way.
Hey.
And so I agree with you. I feel like Florida was like, we want both of these guys, but there's a lot more people in on Chiarot than there are Giroux. I just kind of feel that way. So they had to kind of make, get that deal done, and then let's see what we can do with Claude Giroux, and maybe we can beat out the Avs, because I think the Avs are sitting pretty right now to bring him in.
And I think the thing that's really adding value to Giroux each day that goes on is, and it's really deafening in this silence of moves, each day that goes on, the Vancouver Canucks are getting better. They just jumped the Vegas Golden Knights in the standing, which sends JT Miller's price through the roof. Almost off the table.
Miller's not going anywhere.
That's what I'm saying. And then it's everybody that kind of was putting feelers out on JT Miller, seeing what's out there, where you're like, if we don't get Giroux, at least we could go for JT Miller. That's starting to evaporate. So now everybody's starting to focus on, hey, it's Giroux or we're going to gamble. From where you had your option B is going away. And now a lot more Toronto's out there. Like, they are a team that's kind of falling a little bit.
Yeah.
And a move like Giroux would put them right back where they need to be. And this is what they're looking for.
Well, I know Toronto,
they need goaltending.
Yes.
But they also need somebody else to score and some more veterans out there. So there are other teams that are seeing this piece out there that are sitting there, like Vegas. Like, I'm just saying there are teams that are fighting for that playoff spot. Giroux will send them like farther in the playoffs. The Avalanche, if they get Giroux, this could be your Stanley Cup.
Oh my God, yeah. But the moves they made already, those are nice moves, really good, necessary moves. Like I said, Giroux is the big fish, and I just feel like they have a deal in place, and if they didn't, I don't know if Florida goes ahead and makes that move. I get it, it's kind of counterproductive to what we were just saying, how they make a move just to get the guy that they need because so many other guys are involved with him. And talking about Chiarot, but I kind of feel like the Avs are now even more so because of the surgery with Landeskog. Doesn't seem like Girard is going that route. I kind of get the impression that they want Girard to come back so he can get some time with Manson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they made that move, and Bednar even said those two guys are he's excited to see those two guys on the same pairing together.
Yeah, Josh, the Manimal, by the way, that's his nickname, the Manimal. So go ahead and stick to that. But yeah, to have Sammy G and the Manimal as our second,
I like that pairing.
Oh my goodness, that would be incredible.
I like it a lot. All right, so there was a signing too. San Jose signs Tomas Hertl. And I know that doesn't, he was another name that was kind of being thrown out there for a while. For me, you probably have to give up more to get Hertl than you were going to have to get Giroux. And I just felt like both of those guys, or both Hertl and the Sharks, wanted something to get done.
Yeah.
And they just had to go through the process of contract negotiations, and then they came to an agreement.
It was a mid-season Gabe Landeskog in the offseason scenario.
It was, yeah. It really was. So I didn't feel like he was going anywhere. And I know JT Miller keeps on getting thrown around there, and maybe he does, but I keep thinking because he has another year left, I just don't see it. Maybe next year, if they're kind of like, treading water next year for their season, maybe we're revisiting this. But we've also thrown around Jacob Chikrin, and you know how I feel about him. And he was injured the other day. It was thought that it was going to be 2 to 4 weeks. And now I think we're kind of set in that it's only going to be 2 weeks at the most.
Yeah, if 2, yeah.
Could this still be? I mean, you have to think the Avs are done on defense.
Yeah.
Say they lose out on Giroux, he goes somewhere else. You feel like they still have to make another move. Could they bring him in for the heck of it and just say, now we're even going to have even more of a killer defense than we already had, even though we didn't plan that's our option B.
Honestly, that one, if you load up another defender at the trade deadline as you don't get it's a right left hook combo. Like, you didn't get Giroux and here's another defender, but you won't get him for another week because he's still hurt.
Right.
That's really going to
But the thing
sting.
is, like, you're okay. You're fine on defense. It's not like you'd be
Exactly.
waiting for him to. You're counting the days for him to come off, of his injury list and join the team. And if you lose out on Giroux and you get more of it, if and I feel like the Avalanche do, they're not letting it on, and why should they? Because he's an injured player in Bowen Byram. If Byram is going to be out longer than we are anticipating, I would do a deal for him. I would.
I'm not sold on another defender being what we need.
It's not. It's definitely not.
And if we end up going through this trade deadline, picking up another defender, and that's about it, I don't know if I'm going to be thrilled.
If it's Jacob Chychrun, I'll be more than thrilled. I will. Sorry. I think he's that good. I absolutely love his contract, and you have it for multiple years. You are fine for the most part on your scoring. You do need a little bit of depth move. Giroux is the goal. That is goal. What you want. That is absolutely what you want. But again, if that falls through, what are your plan Bs? And that's why I love the trade season, because we're sitting here, we're talking about Claude Giroux over and over and over again. Avalanche have their plan B and plan C and plan D. And I can guarantee you all of those other plans are probably on par with someone like Claude Giroux.
Yeah.
And we're not just thinking about it, and we're not sitting here. It's somewhere that, GMs are going to do their homework on guys other than Claude Giroux, but can bring the same amount of value. And if they lose out on him, they're going to get a guy. And for me, Chychrun is just like wishful thinking. I think he's just, I love the guy. He's maybe one of my favorite players outside of the Avalanche sweater. So that's kind of why I want to bring him in, for selfish reasons. And the contract is fantastic.
Yeah. Same thing for JT Miller for me. I feel you there.
I wouldn't mind that. I mean, trust me, I would love to have JT Miller. I just feel like Vancouver's not going to part with him. No. I don't see it happening. I do think that Toronto, Mark Giordano did not take the ice with Seattle as we're recording this. And apparently it was his 1,000th game, and they did not put him out on the ice. So you have to think a deal for him is coming up. In no way, shape, or form, but I think he's coming to Colorado. But he could be on the move. I could see him going to Toronto. I feel like Toronto is they need defense. I think they could get Giordano, and they could get Marc-Andre Fleury if they can make all that work, and Toronto's back in business.
Then why are we waiting, Claude? What are you waiting for your 1,000th game for? Come on. Come on.
Oh my God. Can you? It's a little bit different with Giroux, all with one team, but I mean, poor Mark Giordano gets drafted by, an expansion team when his former team is tearing it up. They give him the first ever captaincy of the franchise's history. And I said this on Locked On NHL, like, you heard rumors of him being traded at the trade deadline when he was drafted in the expansion draft. Yeah. Everybody saw this coming, and now it's actually here.
They would have raised a banner for him getting 1,000 games in Seattle. They need banners up there.
They are predator happy in Seattle. They still raise a banner just because. I don't know, man. This is exciting times, because this is the trade deadline. This is kind of what GMs in waiting like myself live for. We're couch GMs, and we love to see where things go.
And the first and foremost, what you need to think, like, don't stress and worry, because Joe Sakic has already proven with 2 off the radar trades so far. Like, I would have never told you Stroman and Manson they'd be playing for the Colorado Avalanche this year. And you already see the contributions the Manimal Manson had made in his first game. Got the game puck. Yeah. Like, the team loves him. Like, if we don't get Giroux, I feel like Sakic's got a wonderful plan that's not going to make sense until you see what number he wears and what game he's playing in, and the difference that he's going to make.
And like I said before, the draft or the trade deadline is a practice in patience. And there was someone made a comment on the YouTube episode, said he had a conversation with his friend saying, why, if Claude Giroux doesn't want to be here, he basically saying like he would facilitate it quicker if he wanted to be here. And my response to that was, it's important to him. It's important to him to get 1,000 games with the same team. And if he's gotten that far, why pull out the rug from under him now? I think he's earned that right, and he'll have plenty of time to get acclimated to the team. And, it's just, you need patience with this stuff. But that's the hardest part of being in the position that we are, is waiting around, because we want deals to happen fast and furious, and it just doesn't work that way.
So, we want our deal to be done, and we want to watch everyone else scramble.
Exactly. but even having said that, like, we've done 2 really good deals, and the Avs did nothing on Wednesday, and I was mad.
Yeah,
because everybody else is doing stuff.
We're so spoiled.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they'll be involved, maybe tomorrow, maybe over the weekend. But the Avs are definitely not done dealing. So when it happens, we will talk about it. Maybe tomorrow. And the Avs do have another day off on Thursday before their Friday game. So we'll be back tomorrow. And then if anything breaks, we will be discussing it. But until then, that's going to wrap it up for today, everybody. So thank you for tuning in. Always appreciated for making this your first listen of the day. And go check out Locked On NHL, which I host with Gil from Locked On Islanders. And we kind of get into these deals as well. So go check that out. All right. That is going to wrap it up. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. Once again, always appreciated. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli, and this is the Locked On Avalanche